Welcome to the speaker series on a shot glass of recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. You get a house, you get a car, then you start thinking that's all you are, but you don't know the truth. So let me spell it out for you. Now I got your attention, now there's a start. Now sit and listen to my favorite part. Life's been giving us some clues. The answer lies inside of you.
Hi, I'm Lisa, and welcome back to a shot glass of recovery. Before we dive into today's episode, a quick reminder to support the show by liking, subscribing, and following us on iTunes, Spotify, and Podbean. You can also support us by leaving a review. It helps us to reach more listeners on their recovery journey. If you'd like to keep the show going, another way to support us is by considering to make a contribution through our PayPal link at paypal.me/a shot glass of recovery. Every dollar makes a difference, and we appreciate your support. On today's show, we're thrilled to feature another incredible speaker from the online home group AA Solution Seekers. This community offers live speakers every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, sharing experience, strength, and hope. Until you can join them live, here's a taste of the wisdom and inspiration they bring to the table.
Excited and so grateful. I have a sponsor who has a sponsor who has a sponsor. And I have worked the steps and I live in steps 10, 11, and 12. So what it was like, I'm an only child. I'm from Alabama originally. And I my early memories are I felt like I was different, like something wasn't right. Now I have words for it. But at the time I didn't. And just not being comfortable in my own skin, like we hear so many times in the rooms. Um, I felt I had friends, but I always felt like I was still, like kind of on the outside looking in. And I felt less than because my parents divorced when I was about 5, and that in my little community where I lived, there was no one else with divorced parents. And I felt like, my dad left because of me and or something I did. I wasn't enough. And so that was that, I carried that with me for a long time. And so my mom and I, it was just us, obviously. And she was angry. She was always angry. But she became even angrier after my dad moved out and they divorced. And so I remember feeling like I had to walk on eggshells. I always had to keep the peace. And, now I feel like, my shoulders were up. I was kind of tense. And she wasn't an alcoholic, but it was similar to what I've heard about children who grow up in alcoholic homes where you never know, what's going to happen when the mom comes in or the father or the caretaker. So I never wanted to rock the boat. I never wanted to upset her. When we were out in public, she, would fly off the handle with, the customer service or the waiter, waitress at the restaurant. And I felt like I was always trying to like smooth things over. And it just felt like so much. So I had to perform in school. I had to be the best, the teacher's pet. I had to just keep my mom happy because I didn't know what she was going to do. She would, hit me, spank me, just break things, hit other things. And so it just, I was always kind of stressed. And so, so I went through, we were in a, like a very conservative Christian community. So we went to the church. I went to the school that was attached to the church, a small school. It was this pretty much the same group of us from the beginning up until we graduated from high school. And so I could never do what the other kids did, even though it was all a small, you know, families similar with similar faith. I was never allowed to see the movies that the other Christian kids got to see or to stay out as late as they did. It was such a strict, controlled environment. I couldn't, choose what I wore. I had to wear dowdy, embarrassing, old lady type clothes. And I just couldn't wait to get out. I could not wait. I didn't ever like test it. I never drank in high school um, because I was too afraid of getting caught, but I could not wait until I got out of the house and I could do what I want. I could wear what I want, eat what I want, all of that stuff. So I went to college. My mom chose the college, but that's fine. I was just glad to get to go. And I didn't have to live at home, even though it was not far from my home. She let me live in the dorm. And it was amazing. So I just went completely off the rails. And so my first drink was soon, when I went to college. Not right away. It took me a little couple months to like shed the good girl. I mean, I didn't mention that, but that was so drummed into me, you're a good girl. We don't talk about anything inappropriate. You never tell what's going on in the family, outside of the family. And wearing the mask. I always had to feel like I was performing for the outside world. Everything's great. I'm happy. And part of that, I think, is being in the South. You're so polite and mannerly and courteous. And so I just never could be real. I never could share real feelings, be who I wanted to be. And so when I went to college, it took a minute to get rid of that. And then so I had like a little sip of a drink when we went out to a club near the beginning of college. But my first like real drink was my first year. And some older boys had invited two of my friends and me over to their apartment. And they had bought the alcohol, because they were old and we were freshmen. And so they had this bottle of Boone's Farm, Strawberry Hill, this cheap wine, wine. I don't even know if you can call it wine, but and so I was like, oh, great. And so I drank that and blacked out. Don't remember. I went into his room with him, and things happened that I had never done before, but I don't really remember it. I kind of remember leaving and the next day I couldn't wait to drink again. I didn't think like, oh, that wasn't good. I don't think I was hungover the next day, and I thought blackouts, that was just what happened when you drank because I hadn't done it before. So that just started the whole cycle of wanting to drink, finding friends who did. So I had to have different friend groups because my normal friends didn't want to go out every night. They would go out on the weekends. So I just had to find different people who would wanted to go out and drink. And I I could tell pretty soon that once I had the first drink, I didn't want to stop. But I didn't know what that was. I didn't have, well, anyway, I'll get to that. So I knew, once I started, and then it would go on. So if the people I was with were ready to go home, then I would just find other people in the bar to stay and drink with. I never wanted the party to end. And but I also remember what I loved about it, like it says in the big book, We Drink for the Effect, was that I didn't care about anything. I wasn't worried about anything. I wasn't worried that, my mom was going to blow up on someone and, just all of the things. Was I pretty enough? Was I good enough? I just didn't worry about it. I didn't care. And it was such a relief. And I just always wanted to feel that way. I could let my shoulders down, let the air out, the breath that I was always kind of holding, and I loved it. And it was so freeing. And I thought, this is how I'm going to have to live. And why doesn't everybody do this every day, all the time? And so it just progressed. I just drank the rest of the way through school. I don't know how I was able to graduate, because I not never, but rarely studied. I did have an easy major, so that helped. But I I finished, I graduated, and I met who was going to, turned out to be my husband. I'm near the end, and he would party, but he was, kind of a good boy. And he would tell me he didn't like it when I drank because he saw how it changed me. And I didn't mention I would be Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and I would, just flip out on people. And it was just bad. And so I met him. He didn't like it when I drank, so I quit. And it was fine because, it just hadn't progressed that far yet. So I just thought, I know I can't have one or two because I can't stop. So I just have zero. It's like it's black and white. You just don't drink if you can't. And so that I was able to do that for some years. We got married. Um, and we had two of our children, and I slowly started to think maybe I could handle some drinks, the controlled drinking. So I would go to book club or girls night things, and try just to drink a little, but right away I couldn't. And so I would in my mind say I'll only have two glasses of wine at book club. So I would, but I would just add a little more. Like it's not a full glass, it's just, the things that how we lie to ourselves. And so I did that for a while and was thinking I can do this, and then I went to a girls' night. We went to go see the play Wicked, and got a limo, and I don't know why I'm not like that, but my friend was. So we did that, and we drank on the way. It was an hour away, and I didn't say I moved to Florida after we got married. My husband's from here, his family's here, and his job was here. So we made our home here, and our children are born here. And so we were going up to Tampa, to the big city, to see the play Wicked. And so we drank, and I must have, I don't even remember. I drank so much on the hour drive that I don't remember going into the play. Um, no, I do remember going in, but then thinking I need a cigarette. And I didn't mention that I have four children now. And I don't have a lot of privacy right now because my daughter's home from college, and she's like right upstairs sleeping on the couch, and I'm down here. But I'm just so grateful, I don't even care that I have all my children home. But anyway, so I remember I was like, I need a cigarette. So I left the play. I remember wandering around like the streets of Tampa and lost my shoe. It was just so bad. Had so many bruises the next day, no clue what happened. And my friend had to walk me to the door my husband. And so I had a lot of shame because I'm like, I'm old, I'm like 30 now at the time, and I'm old, I'm married, I have kids, like what am I doing? And it really scared me. So from that point, I knew controlled drinking didn't work. Um, and again, it was okay. And then years went by, and my sponsor says, I was similar to the carpet slipper man from the big book, who decided not to drink until he retired and then started drinking and then was dead in 4 years, because I didn't drink at all for 16 years after that. And but I did use another substance that my husband suggested because I was so angry. I I was sober, dry drunk, without a program, and I was angry, and I was angry at my kids all the time. We had another child, and then we adopted our youngest from Zambia, and um, I was living the dream, what I always wanted to do. I was a stay-at-home mom, had a beautiful home, beautiful yard, big pool, um, and my family who loved me. And I was so miserable, and I didn't know why. And so, after some years of living like that, my husband suggested that I try some medical stuff that's legal here in Florida if get it from with the doctor. So anyway, so I thought I would try that. I tried it in college and thought it was lame because, I preferred drinking, but I was like, I'll try it. So anyway, of course, then that progressed, and then I couldn't stop doing that and was using that all the time. Um, and then my mom passed away unexpectedly in in January of 22. So just over 3 years ago. And we we were close, like it was hard growing up, but as an adult, it was different when we weren't living in the same house. And so we were close, and I knew that I was everything to her. She never remarried, and it was us. And she was like my one person who I knew if I ever was in trouble, in the middle of the night, whatever, I could call. And so, and I have a husband, but it's just, I don't know. There was just something about my mom and feeling like she would always have my back, even though I didn't like the way she had my back. I knew that she would have it. And then she was gone, and she got sick, and then within a week she passed, and it was right after COVID, so they wouldn't let me in the hospital, until the very end. And then I did get to be with her and hold her hand as she passed, and it was such a gift. I'm so grateful. But anyway, so that was my excuse after that. And then after all these years, I don't know why I decided to, have a glass of wine again. And we were at a big family. We were away in Michigan at the lake, and a lot of families staying in the big house, this big house, my in-laws' house, and wine everywhere. And they were drinking out of the red plastic cups. And I don't know why, I just thought I should drink. And I did. And that's when everything changed because, well, nobody knew because it was in a red cup. And there were so many people and little ones, and there was just so much going on. Like my family didn't notice, and it never would have occurred to them that I would drink after, so many years. And my husband and I had been arguing about the other substance. So I was trying to stop doing that because he recognized that that was a problem for me. So I just drank. And then the next morning, I remember thinking, okay, never doing that again. Nobody has to know. But I didn't, and this was when the mental obsession came that I did not know was a part of alcoholism. I just knew about the physical craving that I had once I had a drink. But the mental, I also didn't know was progressive. So the mental obsession kicked in, and it was all I could think about that day. So, of course, that night, as soon as they brought the wine out, I did. And then we get home from vacation, I start buying it. I would take my son to school. My older kids could drive. My daughter had moved out to college, and I would just drink wine all day while they were at school and my husband was at work. And then I would nap or go to bed at 5, and my husband, they didn't know for a long time. My husband just thought I was depressed, or he thought I was using too much of the other thing. My kids didn't know because I just stayed in my room. It was terrible. And anyway, I want to, move ahead to the solution. So after not very long of that, it was August, and then in September, no, October, so just like 2 months of drinking like that. Um, my husband said to me one night, he was like, "What's wrong with you? You're acting so weird." And I didn't say anything. But the next day I had to tell him, and I said, I started drinking again. And he was shocked, and I said, "I'll stop, I'll go to AA, I'll stop." So I went to my first AA meeting in September, the end of September, but I was just doing it, because my husband said I had to. And I just picked one. I went to it's also at 7, an in-person meeting that I just found online and showed up. And it was it was amazing. And I remember, the first time saying, "I'm Kelley, I'm an alcoholic." I mean, I just sobbed, I couldn't believe this was where I had ended up. So I went, and it was just like, I felt like I was home. People were so kind, and it was great. And so they gave me a big book. And I didn't open it, but they gave it to me, and I went to the meeting, and and then after a couple weeks, like maybe 3, I drank again. I wasn't doing anything, I didn't have a sponsor. I just showed up at the meeting to tell my husband I went to a meeting. And then I drank again, and then tried to hide it. And then finally, my first sobriety date was November of 22. Um, I I drove in a blackout. And I don't know how I never got arrested, never hurt anyone except for God protecting. But um, I, just would drive and then get a hotel room in the middle of the day. And I don't know why I would do this stuff, but I finally knew I didn't want to do this anymore. And so my husband came home from work early and said, "You can't live here anymore." And he got a suitcase out. Um, and he was crying, I was crying. So at that point, I knew he was serious. I knew I couldn't do this. So God worked in these amazing ways, already taking care of me, way back before I even cared or knew I needed him. And there happened to be a woman who had 10 years sobriety, and she was like a friend of a friend. I had met her, I didn't really know her. And so she got my number and she called me and said, "This is what we're going to do. We're going to show up at this meeting tomorrow morning, and you're going to go." She just said, "You bring money to put when they pass the basket. You're going to introduce yourself. You're going to share back, and you're going to listen and just listen." And so it felt like I had a plan. It was like my mom used to be like, "This is what you're going to do," and tell me. So I knew what to do because I didn't know what to do about my alcoholism. And her name was Stephanie, and she just, I mean, she went with me. She met me, and then we went to all these different meetings. She helped me find my sponsor. I wanted her to be, but she was like, "No, I think I don't know." Anyway, so I found my sponsor, um, and I'll never forget that. I never knew that people could be that caring and helpful, and not want anything in return until I came to AA. And so I had for my that she was my first AA friend, and then I met my sponsor, and I was a little afraid of my sponsor. She reminds me of my mom, but not in like a violent way, but just very like matter of fact, not warm and fuzzy. This is what we do. So she took me through the big book. Um, I She knows the book. She loves the book. And loves the program. And so I learned so much from her, just going through it line by line. Right. I wrote so many notes. She said, "My sponsor told me to write this down. So you write it down." And then one day you're going to sponsor people and take them through the big book. And so you have it here, you have what you need to share with them. And so I jumped right in. I finally had hope. As soon as I read the doctor's opinion, she told me to read that. And it was like, I mean, hope. It was like hope just flooded in to my spirit. Like there is something wrong with me. There is a thing called alcoholism, because I was skeptical and thought it was just an excuse, oh, they're an alcoholic, but really it's because they just wanted to drink instead of take care of their families. I didn't know. Until I read the doctor's opinion that it is an actual thing. There is a physical allergy, and there is this mental obsession, and it's also a spiritual malady, that I have to have a higher power. And I was fine with God. As I said, I had been in a Christian environment my whole life, but I thought God was not fine with me because I had, broken all the rules, and all the things that said you were going to hell. I had, well, not all of them, but I had done so many. And so I figured that God wouldn't want to have anything to do with me. But I was willing, and I knew, my sponsor said, "Just be willing." And so we started going through the steps, and I knew, 90 meetings in 90 days. And I was so excited um, to do that. And I remember my family telling them, 90 minutes, and then bringing home my 30-day chip, and I would like clip it onto the fridge so that they could see it. And and then I remember them saying, "Well, what happens when you get to 90 days?" And I was like, "Well, you keep going, you just keep doing the same, you don't stop, you keep on." But I thought that was such a funny question because I guess I hadn't thought about what happens when I get to 90. Well, anyway, so a couple days after 90 days, I was not, I wasn't, it was kind of like, okay, I did the 90 days. And then I remember thinking, that I was fat because when I quit drinking, I started eating sugar, everything. But I would, well, at least I'm not drinking, so it's okay if I eat, 100 Twizzlers or whatever it was. And so I remember that I was thinking, I am not happy with myself. I did not get sober to be miserable. I'm fat. I'm ugly. I hate this program. And after thinking that way a couple of days, and I hadn't called my sponsor, and I went out again, and I picked up, I called Instacart, the delivery, and they brought me wine, within the hour, and I, I just did, and I hid it from my family. It was for about a week. Um, and so my new sobriety date, as I said, is March 10th of 23. And that time I went up, and it was bad. Um, Somebody's coming downstairs, but it's okay. I ended up, going out of town again. Um, just, I was in a blackout walking down the street. I had on my bathing suit and a cover up. I don't know what I was doing. I was trying to find the beach up in St. Pete. I had cut my finger on the bottle, so it was bleeding everywhere, and it was windy, so I would go to wipe my hair back. So I had blood. It wasn't that bad. It just looked bad. So I had like blood all over my face and down my white cover up. And some man who had on like a neon, vest, like that works on the, from working on the side of the road, stopped me and was like, "Are you okay?" And he was so nice. And so I get in the car with him, and he's like, "I'm gonna help you get cleaned up." Because I didn't realize I was bleeding. And and I remember I got in the car with him, and he was young. And I had this moment of clarity, like anything could happen right now. Like I just got in the car with someone I don't know. And and I just kind of, it just like jolted me like, wow, but what could I do? And then I felt like God, like, set right after that, God sent me a little gift because the young man right after said, I said something, and he was like, "Yes, ma'am." And I remember thinking like, okay, he said yes, ma'am, maybe he's not going to hurt me. um and he didn't, and he took me to McDonald's and got me wet napkins, and helped me get cleaned up. And I told him, I think my cousin's here visiting, and so he tried to help me. And it was, I mean, it was a miracle. And so anyway, that was my last drunk, one day at a time. I pray that was. And I, after that, it scared me enough that I was willing to do all the suggestions, not just some of them, not half measures. I called my sponsor every day, like she told me to, because I was scared. I thought I had it those 90 days, and then I realized I didn't. And so it, obviously was what it took for me to get serious about my illness and about the program. And I was all in, and I came all in, and I sat all the way down. I got service at my home group, my in-person home group. I made the coffee, and I had to get there at like 6:15 in the morning, and we meet outside under like a pavilion, and it was dark. And I was so happy to have this. I was like, everybody's counting on me. I've got to have the coffee. And it gave me a purpose. And so I did that every morning for months. And then I started thinking, there's this time in the afternoon when, my kids are home from school, my husband's not home yet, kind of like a lull. And so I found a Zoom meeting because I wanted to, stay busy and stay focused on my sobriety. And I just stumbled upon it, late night London, and God, but I just just randomly picked one. It was at a good time for me, to like keep me strong until the evening. And the fellowship that I found that first night, or it was afternoon my time night, in London, but was unlike anything. I didn't have that in my home group, but it was also because it's the morning. So the meeting, you kind of just are going to work or going about your day. We talk in the parking lot after, but this was a night meeting. And so, people were going to bed or whatever. And just the banter, the laughter. I don't know why I stayed for fellowship, because normally that I would be way too shy to do that on a Zoom meeting. I was new to Zoom. I didn't know anything about it. And I just, the accents helped a lot. I thought they were so adorable, these English accents. And so I just got sucked in, and they made me feel a part of that very first night. And they were hilarious, and they were laughing at each other, and they had some time, and I saw that you can have fun and enjoy yourself and have friendships and connections without you know alcohol or anything else, and that they understand me. We think the same things are funny, that normal people would be horrified that we were laughing at it, but we can laugh at it now. We can talk about it. We can take the power out of it. And so that's how I found my online home group. And this sweet old man said, keep coming back, and he said, if you come back tomorrow night, I've got something to tell you, because it meets every night. And I was like, oh yes, I can't wait, and so I've gone back almost every night, and I do service on that meeting too. So I love having in person and Zoom. But my in person, I live in Sarasota. It's beautiful, but it's kind of a retirement area. And so I'm even now, I'm way younger than than a lot of people. And so it's different. I love my in person home group. But it's nice to have some women and some people my age and younger, on Zoom, to have connections with, because my group is pretty much old men, and I love them. But I found my home group. I do service on that meeting. Let me see what else I needed to be sure to say. But service was huge, in changing how I viewed my recovery. And then doing the steps with my sponsor was, I mean, it was life changing, especially step 9, which I was so afraid. And she would say, You're not there yet. We take each step." And so steps 1 and 2, I knew my life was unmanageable and I was powerless. So that didn't take too long, for me to admit to those. And then I remember doing step 3, and I had been doing the 3rd step prayer and the 7th step prayer every morning. She told me to get down on my knees and to say them, even if I don't know what I'm saying. You just do it, because alcoholics need discipline and they need structure. And so I did it, because I was not disciplined and structured before. And so I continue to do that every morning. And we went to this special, like, woodsy park area. And so she got down on her knees with me. And so I remember doing the 3rd step with her. And it was just powerful to do something like that in public, um, with somebody else. It was just like this beautifully spiritual moment that I was not used to having when I did my 3rd step with my sponsor. And then the 4th step, took me a while. I did not see my part in most things. And then doing the 5th step with her, I thought that she would feel sorry for me and say, that's okay, they this and they were so mean to you. And she didn't. And she said, this, you did this. This is, do you see this? And, like specific things that I can't really get into right now. But I was shocked because I thought she would not be so harsh and and then as I left after doing the fifth step, when I drove home, I remember thinking like, I'm done with her. I am not having this sponsor anymore. We just are not on the same page. I was so mad. And then it took me a little bit, and then I realized that's what I needed to hear. I need someone to tell me the truth, to tell me when I'm not acting right. I need to learn to be an adult. I've never had to be an adult because I either had somebody who fixed my problems or who, you know, um, I just never was accountable, never responsible for anything. And so I've had to learn how to be a responsible adult in Alcoholics Anonymous from my sponsor, from my fellows. I've learned how to suit up and show up and not bail out. I was like the queen of not showing up for something if I didn't feel like it or showing up late. Um, I just would do what I want, and I was ruled by my feelings. And so I've learned in AA that feelings are temporary. They come and they go. They're not real. And I don't have to think how I feel right now is how I'm going to feel forever. If I'm having a bad day, it's a bad day. Just, basic things that I just never understood before. I've learned in AA, and then doing step 6 and 7 and 8. 6 and 7 seem short in the big book, but I love them. And then making my amends was so terrifying. Um, but when I did it, it was the most freeing. I thought that I was getting free from working the steps, and I was, but it was a whole next level after making amends, feeling like the weight was off my shoulders. And then my sponsor saying, you have to do, you don't just run up and say, I'm sorry. We went in the big book. She had me write out the letter, um, what I wanted to say, and my parents had both passed, so I was able to write and then read it to them. But that I do living amends because I couldn't make direct amends to them. But my husband, um, I had, things he did not know about, financial, not anything else, thank goodness. That I had to make financial amends to him. He had no idea how much credit card debt I had put us in. Because I am the one who pays the bills, and credit cards I had opened as a stay-at-home mom all these years, you know, have nothing. I mean, I'm completely dependent on him. Yet I'm paying the bills and opening credit cards and spending. And so I had to tell him that, and I was terrified because I I was ashamed and I was afraid. And I told him it was so freeing, but my sponsor said you have to do something. You can't just say I'm sorry or say I want to make this right. You have to take the action. And so I told him that I was willing to get a job to pay back this credit card debt, which was shocking because he knew I never wanted to work. I was meant to be a stay-at-home mom and I was not going to work, which I know sounds terrible. Um, and the way God worked in me to make me willing, I wanted to make this right. I had done this and I wanted to make it right. And to do a job interview, like, things like that that are normal, but for me, they weren't. And I was terrified. And I got a full-time job and I'm doing it. And it's been like 7 months now, and they want me to stay. They like me. I'm a librarian at the public library, and I like it. I mean, I love it for a job. You know, but it's what I need when I'm at home. I think I feel sorry for myself, even in sobriety. It's exactly what I needed. And now I'm contributing to the family. I'm, pulling my weight. It's the best. And I live in steps 10, 11, and 12. I know I need to end, but I I do step 10. I try to every night, or I don't, but I try to keep an inventory and remember the good things, the wins, and the things I need to work on, and how I can pack, into the stream of life. And then step 11, as I said, I do my prayers every morning. I ask God in. My sponsor will say, when I have a problem, she'll say, "Where's God in this? Have you asked him in?" I have a God box where I can write things down and leave it, like a physical box, which seems silly, but I thought I'll do it. I'm willing to do it. So I write it down. And then step 12, I want to help the next alcoholic, anybody who reaches their hand out for help. I want to be there to help. And I can never pay back AA for what it's given me, but I can pay it forward to the next and the next and the next. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity. And thank you so much, Mike, for asking me to share.
Everything you do, the answer lies inside you.